right at home because this happens in the classroom quite a bit in our district. I don't know about yours. So the next thing we'd like you to do is just turn and talk to a partner. I know that you're without the visuals of this expedition. So at this point, we're just going to have to ask you to use your imagination. But turn and talk to an elbow partner. And the question is, would you join an expedition to Mars? So you're thinking about yourself. Would this be something that you would be willing to do, and why or why not?
Okay, so we're going to use a strategy called numbered heads to share out some of your ideas for whether or not to go to Mars or not to go to Mars. Again, this is you thinking personally about whether or not you would join an expedition. So I'm going to number you off super quickly, all right? Just remember your number. While I'm doing that, can you please flip your paper over, or if you have room at the bottom, just create your own little pro-con chart. And again, I'm going to number you off very, very quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, Gloria, 3, 4, 1. Let's go up here, 2. At the top here, you're going to be a 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. You're 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. All right, everybody got it? So when your number is called, I'd like you to stand up, please, and just be prepared to share one reason that you would either choose to go or not go on an expedition to Mars.
Okay, well, all number 2s, please stand up. And Gloria, since I know your name and I can call you by name, can you share a reason to go or a reason not to go?
Yes, I would like to go because I like to travel, and that would be the ultimate trip.
Ultimate trip, okay. You'd love to travel. Yes, please. As you're hearing ideas from the group, please list it on your pro and con chart. And how about all the way in the back?
I say no because I like fresh, breathable air anytime available.
Okay, great. Thank you. And how about one more?
Sure. No, I am afraid of not being able to return and floating off into space.
Okay, so that would be a con for sure. Okay, thank you. And you guys can sit down. All 4s, please. We only had 2 4s? Oh, okay. Rosalinda.
Oh, I would go because, I want to see the universe, and so why not? If we don't come back, that's fine. At least I got to see everything.
So you're okay with not coming back?
Yes.
Wow, okay. Good.
As long as I can get there to see everything.
Yeah. Okay, so as long as you're guaranteed that you will get there. And Sarah?
I would not go because I just want to see my kids, and I would want more stuff to go.
Okay, great. So you want to see your loved ones again. So that'd be a con. How about over here? Anna?
Yes. I would not want to go because I need to be self-sufficient, and I don't trust somebody else running the machine to make air.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. All right.
You want to do this together? And give.
What we're going to be doing next is passing out a few fact cards to each of your tables, one per person. So grab a fact card when they're passed your way. And sorry, we're going to be trying a different little strategy called a tea party. And the way that will work is that you will be walking around, and we ask you to meet 2 people that you don't know and share your fact card with them. And in addition, you can say, this would be a reason for me to go to Mars or not go to Mars because. So in just a second, we're going to ask you to stand. And again, try to find 2 people you do not know Share your fact card by reading it aloud and just whether or not this is a reason for you to go to Mars or not to go to Mars. Any questions?
Yes. So mine says going to Mars would be a good opportunity to see a new world.
Right. But for you, you could say this is not a reason to go to Mars because I'm not interested in seeing a new world. Yeah. Got it?
Again,
Okay.
from first-person perspective.
Right. Okay, everybody up and find 2 people that you do not know. Okay. Maybe add your last reason. So now we're going to ask you to take a look at that pro-con chart and take a stand based on where you are right now in time, right? We know this can shift tonight, tomorrow, next week. But for now, which side of the chart are you feeling more pulled towards? Are you feeling more pulled towards the pro or the con chart? A pro or the con side of the chart? And I'd just like you to circle either the pro or the con side. In addition, I'd like you to star the 2 most compelling reasons that support your choice, so either the pro or the con side. Also, star 1 reason from the opposite side of the chart that you consider to be the strongest counterargument. So we'd like you to use these. Sorry, did you have a question? Oh, this has already been shared and uploaded, so you're cool. In collaboration and common, yeah, it'll be shared in there. Yeah. So now that you have 2 compelling reasons that support your stand and 1 strong counterargument, we'd like you to use the sentence frames that Casey is passing out. Just choose 1 and craft a thesis statement or a claim for yourself. Try to include the 2 compelling reasons that support your stand and the 1 counterargument.
Okay, now that you've had a chance to share that, hopefully with a person at your table, is there anybody who would be willing to share with the entire group one of their sentence frames?
Or did anybody hear a particularly impressive claim that you think the group would appreciate? Okay, in the back.
We were still focused on our writing, so
Oh,
just hold it. Yeah, and I love it, Stephanie.
What I wrote was a benefit of colonizing may be making discoveries that could help us with problems on Earth. And I'm feeling guilty already. But I personally would not go to Mars because I'm frightened about the prospect of living with reliance on machines to provide my oxygen in an environment that may harbor as yet unknown life-threatening organisms.
thank you, Tracy.
good.
Anybody else?
I wanted to add to hers because I put the same thing. A benefit of colonizing, maybe discovering new things out about that planet. But how long have we lived on Earth and we still don't know everything there is to know? So.
Good point. Okay.
I like this one because it talks about justice and creating a society on Mars. It says, even though colonizing Mars would be the ultimate travel adventure, it is not a good idea because there is no plan to create a society that is more just and loving than our current society on Earth.
All right,
Great point.
yeah.
Any others? Okay. So we're going to move on to the next sort of stage of our time together.
Now, if we had the time, we would ask you to create a persuasive paragraph, and for this particular presentation, we just simply do not have the time to do so, but yeah, sure. That would provide plenty of supporting detail to support your claim at the same time, including a counterargument in your thesis statement. So in the packets that Ruth is passing out right now, there are actually persuasive paragraphs that were written by my students. This is 8th grade, and my class is a U.S. history English class, so I have them for 2 periods. They're all English language learners, so this is my strategic class. Most are at level 3. There's a few at SELT level 4, but these are those students that have been languishing in the program for quite some time. I'm sure there's some people in here that have similar students. Most are testing below standard in the reading and writing aspect part of the Smarter Balance test, and almost all, with the exception of 2 students, have a second language. So English is not their primary language, and 85% of my students are on the free and reduced lunch program. So we're going to ask you to look through this work, this packet of work, and with an elbow partner, make a claim about what the author understands, partially understands, or does not understand at all. Point to evidence in the work that supports your claim. As an example, I might say this student does not understand how to transition appropriately because there are no there's no transitional wording in the body of the paragraph. That might be one claim that I might make with the evidence to support that claim.
Or I might say the student does understand, partially at least, how to choose appropriate supporting examples to support their claim. And here's an example of a piece of evidence that is appropriate to the claim. So take a couple of minutes and see if you can make at least one claim about what the student seems to understand, partially understand, or not understand. So would anybody be willing to share a claim that you were able to make? And just to clarify one question I heard about the packets, the reading and color coding was completed after the writing. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute, but
Yeah, so they wrote first and then read after their writing, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
so
Anybody
anybody?
would be willing to share out an observation? Just as a qualifier, this really helps me because this is my students' work, and I know that I expect there to be gaps in their writing, especially with the student population that I have. So I am really open to any type of comments about what you might see as missing or any positive feedback, what some of the strong points of their writing are. So would anybody be willing to share an observation, a claim?
Great, okay.
Well, I just want to share a positive. The strong point that I think about, this is 8th grade. And I
Yes.
deal with secondary students. And I'm like, these are 8th graders that are able to write and communicate like this. So you've done something very good.
Oh,
Because I know 10th, 11th, and 12th graders that cannot process even the pro and con so clearly. So the fact that you're saying these are kids who have struggled maybe, I think I would need to know, what are your steps to get them? Did they come to you able to do this, or was it a work in progress that you got them to this point? And what are some of those basics that you did for them to be able to do this? Because I think that's my challenge. I don't know about anybody else.
sure, yeah, and we'll talk about those things, about what the process was to
Anybody
get
else?
them to the persuasive paragraphs.
Thank you, Mary.
Mine was a question also about process.
Uh-huh.
So I noticed there was on the first page.
So on the first page, there's a first draft. And
Yes.
then the second page was the
Correct.
final draft, I'm assuming.
Correct.
And I noticed that there's some changes. Was that a peer?
All the marks on that rough
mark-
draft are mine.
Oh, from the
And that was
teacher.
basically, I have done peer editing in the past, but this was more of a time issue, but it was really editing. So I was looking at
Okay.
their editing and not necessarily for content, because I didn't want to influence that process at all. I wanted to see the content that they came up with based on the activities we did in class.
Okay. Okay, over here.
I would say this student has a really clear understanding of what the problems are on Earth and went into great detail about those problems and why they're a problem, but then sort of concludes with just a simple statement of, so Mars would be a good backup. But
Right.
doesn't really use Mars as a way to solve those problems. And as someone said over somewhere, I'm not sure where the microphone was, you know, you kind of wonder, well, is that really a solution, or are you just going to take your problems and spread them over a wider area? But the student really had a passion for what they felt were the problems on Earth, and that Mars might be a solution, just didn't go into detail about what that solution could be.
Right, without any evidence about what that solution, yeah.
So there was evidence of student voice and passion, but lack of elaboration about reasons to go to Mars, not to go to Mars.
Thank you.
When I looked at the rough draft, it looked like the student had a good understanding of structure and an intro/thesis and supporting paragraphs, but then in the typed version, it looked like that structure kind of disappeared, and
Oh,
there's all
interesting.
just one paragraph without any kind of breaks. So I'd say it looks like to me a partial understanding of structure.
Yeah, there were multi-paragraphs,
you.
right, in the rough draft? Yes.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much for your comments. We're going to sort of pull back a little bit more and look at some of the possible pedagogy behind it, but also talk about implications for your own context, keeping in mind the full range of responses, right? So in what ways might activities like this support writing for students across the curriculum? And then what are the implications for your own context? And again, we'd like you just to talk to an elbow partner for about 1 minute or 2 minutes, and then we'll move on.
So one of the questions I got as I was walking around is, how long did this take? And I have a 2-period course, a humanities class basically, and I worked on it for the better part of a week, for about from Monday through Thursday. Monday is a minimum day. But anyway, about the better part of a week, and then they also have a computer class where they did their final draft. So they worked on the Google Classroom document in another class, so that would be another hour for them to write their final drafts. And in that 4-day block, that 4-day period, I was doing other things as well. So I would say overall like 3.5 hours, and then plus them writing up their final draft. So about 3.5 periods.
So, yes?
Just a quick question about the vocabulary, because many of these kids are ELD, did you have to talk about what colonizing means?
Absolutely, yeah.
Vocabulary in the video?
Yes, and the initial motivation for this particular lesson is we were talking about colonization, so it was really an into activity for Europeans crossing the Atlantic, never able to return because they didn't have the means to return, so they're facing some of those same issues and decisions. So that was a catalyst for this particular inquiry question.
So would anybody like to share something that occurred to you as you were reflecting with an elbow partner or thinking about your own context? It's okay. Oh, yes, Paula?
I missed the very first part of this, so I didn't know what the into activity was. Like, did you read The Martian, or did you see part of the video of The Martian or something like that?
We watched a video with no visual, which was unfortunate for this experience, but it is, the link is in Collaboration in Commons. So it's a 3-minute recruitment video from Elon Musk. Yeah, and so he's trying to get people to actually sign up, and apparently he did, and he went through a criteria, selection process, et cetera.
It was
So-
a U without the tube. It was just a U, no tube.
Yes, you're SpongeBob, you have to use your imaginations.
Yes.
But
But that's
yeah.
that's just what we did in the classroom as well. that was the media source in the classroom. So another question I had was about the reading, and we ran off all the students' work, and we ran it off, of course, when we make our copies, they're not colored. But I had students go through these 2 readings, and I just had them read the front of each of these articles, because it's pretty involved. And I had them color code. They worked with a partner, so they read with a partner, going through and identifying the counter-argument and the argument. Counter-argument in red, the argument in green. So Ruth and I spent some time just replicating what they had done with the color coding. So I wanted to
On
see...
Valentine's Day.
What was that?
On Valentine's Day.
Yeah, that's right. I really wanted to see, I kind of wanted to flip that practice that I did on its head, that you have a mentor text and it leads to good writing. And what might the writing activity, what might that tell me about their ability to read? And I was really pleasantly surprised that they were able to pick out the, they missed a few, of course, but this was one partnership work, and I have others as well, but they missed a few, but I was really quite excited about their ability to pick out the argument and counterclaim or counterargument, even with some very difficult vocabulary in there. So they were able to pick out the structure and what a claim might look like, even though they may not recognize all the words and know all the words, they were still able to check out or identify the sentence structure there.
Yeah, so some of our findings, and by the way, I had done this with my advanced class, and in my advanced class it took about a period, right? They were really quick about generating pros and cons, and they watched the video, and they knew additional information themselves, and they also knew the structures. They knew the structures to create a thesis statement that would include a counterclaim. So the process went very quickly, and it was just recorded in their quarterly writing notebooks that I have them keep. So what we were really trying to do is just take that experience that my advanced student had in less than a period and say, what would it take to deliver that same thing to Casey's strategic students?
Yeah, let's clarify that. Your advanced students didn't write.
They did write, yeah.
But they didn't
Yeah.
type it up and everything.
But they didn't take it to a final draft. So
She's always trying to show off like that. Show my students up. No, I'm just kidding.
yes, question?
We had a question about the sources that you attached. How did you get kids
to include past cited evidence from the sources? Because none of the samples showed that.
Right.
Were you able to get to that with them?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
The question is, were you able to get students to cite textual evidence from the sources you attached?
Right. In their writing? No.
So yeah, one of the experiments here was, could sort of a writing experience lead to more in-depth comprehension of a complex text? So the writing was actually the pre-reading experience as opposed to the reading being the pre-writing experience. So it was an interesting flip of our normal findings.
And a lot of the evidence that they used in their writing was generated in the class. When they're talking the cards, when they're talking about the cards, my hope was that they would talk about other reasons, other pros and cons to go. So we generated a chart in our classroom, and they took the evidence from what we had generated before. So they had not done any reading at all before they wrote.
So what we concluded, it reinforced some things for us, and again, some were surprises, particularly the reading, but it reinforced for us that using kind of relevant inquiry questions, both large and small, right? Because my advanced students will do a whole iSearch project, and it's a much bigger long-term inquiry project. But even small inquiry projects that take a period or a few periods are valuable because they engage the student, and from the research on deeper learning, we know that engagement is everything. So particularly with underperforming students. And our other finding continues to be that when we give students of all levels, but again, particularly students who are underperforming, opportunities for oral discussion, for oral rehearsal of their ideas, for low stakes oral exchanges, that they can elaborate on their ideas, they can build on each other's ideas, they have access to a greater pool of ideas. And we also know that one key gap for long-term English learners is this fluency in oral production and in writing. So, and in fact, one scary statistic from Jeff Swear's research is that the majority of classroom time continues to be teacher talk. That sometimes majority of classrooms only have 2 minutes for student talk. So we're trying to flip that and make the majority of the class time student exchange.
So this idea of the provocative inquiry question and then that kinesthetic activity, getting them up and they have something to read in front of them, really led to a lot of oral practice. And I don't know about other people in here, but that's been a real big frustration of mine with my second language students, is their hesitancy to talk, even though I have them grouped in partners and I have sentence structures up on the board. So I thought that this was really a vital part of their writing, was their ability to enunciate and to share their thoughts with another partner.
My question was, did you go through some text to make all of these for your students? I love the 1, 2, 3, 4 where their ideas came out first before the cards, but where did you get did you just have to delve into something?
Yeah, some of them I looked up, others are pretty common sense, so I would write them. The first thing that I did with my class is, after watching that Elon Musk video, and they saw the video part of it, of course, but then we produced a pro-con chart. And you'll see on the student work, I think they had like maybe 3 ideas on each side before we did this activity with the cards. So they had some pro-cons from what they had watched, and then when they were able to talk to a table partner. But these were extra ideas that we threw in. We looked some up. I wanted to also verify some of the scientific understanding of the atmosphere of Mars, because I wasn't that sure of it, but I wanted to make sure that it was the correct information we were giving them.
One thing, because this has inspired me to go back, I did a PD with teachers on building students' academic language. And just as you use sentence stems to help with writing, we gave the teachers sentence stems. So when they looked at an article, we had the pro and the con side about whether there should be more teacher talk or more student talk. And there was an article that they read. We had them count off just like you did, and we put them on each side of the room, the pro and the con. And it was even hard for teachers. Use the sentence stems when you are going to respond, whether it's pro or con. And that's kind of what we said, take this back to your classroom with your students, especially ELs, that won't talk, and have students help each other and make it a game.
Yes, for sure.
That's really great. I love that. In fact, that leads into our next finding, which is that the use of these mentor language structures can sort of empower students who are not only learning English, but let's face it, learning academic English. And I consider the majority of my students to be second language learners when it comes to academic English. So plucking sentence structures, yesterday in the writing presentation, I talked about mentor texts, but we find that mentor language structures from particular genres, from particular subject areas, empower students to learn how to speak the language in the way that that language is spoken in the subject area. And then finally, our surprise finding was that the ability to recognize these complex sentence structures and replicate them in their writing empowered them to identify them in readings, in complex readings, and that was really a surprise finding for us. So just real quickly to show you how this plays out in real life, a simple sentence structure, which is what a lot of students will default to, is, you know, there were many Spanish and Portuguese reforms during the 18th century. That leads to a lot of lower DOK thinking and reporting and writing.
And it's informational writing, really. It's not, it is a claim in some respects, but
whereas giving them a sentence structure like this forced them to operate on a higher DOK level and also engage with the counter-argument. So they're engaging in argument thinking and writing. It may not be as polished as an advanced student, but they're engaging in that thinking. And this mirrors real-world publications that use these language structures. For example, the New York Times pitched at a 10th grade reading level, I think. But, you know, just the other day, complex sentence structure that includes a counter-argument and an argument. Very perplexing to students who struggle with reading. Here's another one. While the price of an affordable housing unit may be alluring, there are challenges associated with these projects that prospective buyers should examine closely. So, again, every genre, every subject area will have slightly different mentor sentence structures that can be plucked. So we have run out of time, but we thank you so much,
Thank
not
you.
only for
Yes.
being here, but for engaging. And we know how hard that can be. Everything should be uploaded, and if you have any questions, please see us.
And please leave the,
It's okay, you can take whatever you like.
you can
may
take the
whatever you
student work
like.
if you
Yeah.
like the packets, but could you make sure that you can just leave these on the table, the
The VAT
index
cards.
cards, please? Thank you.